All right, so here we are, Factory Podcast number 3 with one of my favorite individuals in the 60 years I've been on this earth, probably one of the most favorite individuals, Bruce Brown, who is the founder of Proactive Coaching and mentor to thousands, literally thousands of kids. First of all, we need to say that you've had 37 books published in 68 different publications in 2 languages. Does that sound about right? Or is it more than that?
It doesn't make any difference. Yeah, I don't know. They're not all books. Some of them are more like chapters. They're like booklets. So, yeah.
That's actually, I'm trying to think about how that actually all came about. But I'm going to show you a couple things. I want to get your reaction to just this person and at a certain point in time, and see how you see what you think. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
So I want this guy right here.
I can't. I'm seeing your cloud recording. I'm not seeing a picture, Kev.
All right, hold on. Maybe I'm in the wrong screen. Let's go back. Let's go back. Share.
This picture ain't gonna scare me, is it?
It might. It might. Can you see it now?
Oh, that does scare me a little bit.
So, if you could actually go back and actually talk to this gentleman right now, what words of advice would you give to him? What would you tell him?
I would say that you have chosen you've been called to a great profession. That you've been blessed every day to do something that you love. If I could go back and be 21 years old, I think I was probably 24, 25 there. I'd love to be starting all over again, Kev. I would love to be starting all over again, knowing what I know now. I think I got better every year that I coached and taught. I really worked hard on improving clarity of message and improving preparation, improving the ability to teach physical skills. But I knew that this is what I wanted to do when I was 13. I had some really good mentors in my life, and I think I was really blessed to know at a very young age that this is what I wanted to do. And I've never regretted a single day of it. My dad used to say, you go to work dressed like that and and you get paid for doing that. And so, yeah, I could teach that person, I think, a lot, just based upon things that I experienced. But I knew that I was in the right place even at that age.
That's funny. Here's Can you see that?
Nope, it hasn't changed yet.
Oh, it hasn't changed.
Does it say see all photos? Do I need to click on that?
No.
Okay.
We're gonna close that and we're gonna go back. All right. I didn't close out that. Oh, here it is. Okay.
Oh, that's back to your local recording, cloud recording stuff.
So it's not actually new share. Oh, okay. Here we go. I see what I'm doing. Now, so your dad was a engineer at Richland at Hanford,
Correct.
and he gave you that advice that you could actually like either go to work and make money or do something that you love and actually not make money but still be happy.
Yes. Yes.
And you chose the latter.
I chose the latter, and I've never regretted it a day. I'm not somebody Kev, I'm not some great coach. I'm somebody who absolutely loves this profession and love my players, and I love what the profession can do for young people. So, you know, my dad, toward the end of his life, my mom had Alzheimer's, very severe, and they came and lived with us, and we built a guest house for them on our property, and after my mom passed, my dad, they had been married 71 years, and every afternoon when I wasn't traveling, I was traveling a lot then, but every afternoon when I wasn't traveling, at 3 o'clock, my dad wanted to have a fire and a beer. And we had a big outdoor fireplace, and it's covered, and so we can be out there regardless of the weather. And at 3 o'clock, man, he wanted a fire and a beer. And I guess when you go to bed at 6:30, he was 93. He said, when you go to bed at 6:30, I think it's 3 o'clock, it's probably happy hour. So we'd sit out there, and it was priceless time for me to ask him. He had a great long-term memory, and I could ask him about the first date with my mom, or games that they played in high school that were meaningful and stuff. And some days we would spend a lot of time talking, and I would actually go out there with questions. And other days I could tell he just wanted to sit in silence. I'm not exactly sure where his mind was. So one day we were out there sitting, and it had been about 15 minutes of just watching the fire. And I always respected whatever he needed. So anyway, after about 15 minutes of total silence, he looked at me and he said, Bruce, he said, I hope my life mattered. Now think about that. I mean, out of the blue, my dad says, Bruce, I hope my life mattered. And I think all of us, as we get closer to the end of our life, hope that that's something, our time on earth has been significant and that we've impacted other people and stuff, you know. And it really caught me off guard, and it was kind of emotional for me. And I got a chance to tell him how much his life had mattered to me. But I thought to myself, you know, doing what you do and doing what I did, being a coach for all those years, and still now working with mainly coaches now. Coaches and teachers, I don't think will ever, the ones who really care will never have to ask themselves that question. You'll never have to ask yourself that question, Kev. I wonder if my life mattered. You just won't, and that's part of the blessing. No, my pop, he's pretty special.
I think we all do though. I mean, the older we get, the more we question whether our life matters or not, and to whom it mattered to. I know just from my own personal life that I I asked myself that question because uh, I wasn't blessed with children of my own. So, my kids are basically the kids that I interact with here, the people that I interact with. And when they come back to see me, and they come by to see me, it's almost like when people come to Camano Island to come see you. They stop by. They don't have to, but they come by to see you because you've actually made some kind of impact on their life. So he was to listen to, just you talk to him or speak about him, and uh, just how you spoke about him to other people means that he meant a lot. His life mattered, and it mattered to you. So that's actually that's a great thing. So did he really, like, did he push you into sports? Were you a great, I never asked you this question, whether you were a great athlete or not, or whether you were like the stud athlete at Richland High School back in the day, so were you a great athlete, or were you like
I
the
was I was the third of three boys, Kev, and my oldest brother and my dad had been a really good athlete growing up. He and his brothers, and so I think my dad kind of pushed the first two. My oldest brother had polio, which was part of that generation. It was, it was before the vaccine, and so he really wasn't able to maybe be as athletic as he would have liked to have been. My second brother is a musician and really had no interest in athletics at all. He's still a concert cellist. I mean, he's took more my mom's gifts. I think my mom was a musician, and so I think by the time I came along, my dad was like, "Okay, I'm not pushing anymore." So it was just a natural thing. I mean, so for me, and we grew up outside the city, so we didn't really get involved in youth sports. Um, I just played whatever is in season. You just grew up. You just went from one sport to the next sport to the next sport, and you'd get your buddies. You'd get on your bikes and go down and play the guys from the other neighborhood, and it was growing. My childhood was wonderful. I mean, you chose the teams, you called the balls and strikes, you argued and figured, but you basically you were not adult driven. It was athlete driven. I I was an okay athlete. I was okay. I think I played because my knees would bleed and I'd dive on the floor. I think I got an appreciation uh, for effort and what that could do for you. And I think that influenced me a lot as far as coaching philosophy. I think you people who are the most skilled athletes maybe don't make the best coaches because things came so easy to them.
right?
Somebody, when things don't come easy, you have to really think it through. You have to analyze it maybe more. You have to kind of go through a whole series of failures before you achieve something. So you understand the growth process. You understand how to take a physical skill and kind of progress through it. So I think I analyzed the game probably starting when I was pretty young. So
So so when did you decide you wanted to be a coach,
you know what?
as opposed to an engineer? I mean, your dad was an engineer.
I had no interest in that at all. I mean, I just thought to myself, man, just slip my wrist if I have to sit at a desk my whole life. I had some great mentors. One mentor was my elementary school PE teacher. His name was Rex Davis, and he was young. He came in as a young teacher out of Washington State. He was a really good tennis player and gymnast, but he could do just about anything. And I remember looking at him when I was about 9 or 10 years old and thinking, I want to be him. I want to be that guy. He was fun. He is full of energy and stuff. And then the other big mentor for me was my uncle Ralph, my dad's brother, and he was a few years younger than my dad, and he was a teacher and a coach. And my dad was a great dad, but he came home from work and and there was no joy about what he did. He provided a good living for us, but there was no joy in his job. My uncle Ralph would show up, and it was like he's got a twinkle in his eye, he's got a smile on his face. He is talking about what he does, and he's just got this. He's just full of life, and he was a joker. So I, between those two guys, I said to myself, I can see myself doing that. So I actually started coaching when I was 13, Kev. I don't know if you
Wow.
knew that. I was 13 and I helped coach the little league team. So there were 12 11 or 12, and I was 13. I mean, they were like little brothers of my friends, you know? And so I did that when I was 13. And when I was 14, now think about this, that you could never happen today. At 14, this league, there's 6 teams in this league, Little League Baseball. The organization said I could have my own team. I was 14 years old, and I'm coaching. I'm the head coach of these 12-year-olds, man. And we had one field, and so all the other coaches were all adults, and they got like one practice a week at night because they had to share the field at 5 o'clock or whenever they could get off work, so they could get one night a week they could practice. We didn't have any limits, man. We had 2-a-days. I mean, I'd get on my bike. We'd meet at 10 in the morning. It was summer, you know. We'd meet at 10 in the morning. We'd hit, and we'd come back at 2, and we'd do defense. And it was like, you know.
How'd you get them to respect you? I mean, you're the same age as them.
I know. You know, it was. I don't know. I wasn't trying to be their boss or anything. I was just trying to lead them through the enjoyment of learning how to play baseball and being good at it, you know. And I can remember throwing the bag of bat helmets over my shoulder and getting on my bike and riding 3 or 4 miles to the field so we could practice. But yeah, I can remember being in junior high school and opposing coaches. We had a few coaches that I really respected that I played for, but I respected all of them. But there were a few that we played against. I remember going over to them after a game and saying, when you ran that bunt defense, you know, that squeeze defense, and you brought it, you know, what are you thinking there? How do you teach that? I can remember going and asking coaches after games about techniques they used or how they teach or why they did certain things. And I think my mind, even at a young age, was looking at how I can teach things, not just how I can learn things. So.
And they didn't like look at you funny, like you being this 14-year-old and you know, basically asking these like technical questions. They didn't like look at you like, who is this little
Oh, I don't know. Maybe they did.
Get away from me, kid. Get away from me. I'm not giving you my secrets.
You know what? Most coaches are really willing to share.
Well, yeah, of course. That's how they're supposed to be. They're coaches. So
probably did look at me funny though, Kev.
Here we go again. We're going back into the Wayback Machine again.
Oh, baby.
Well, we're not actually going there. We're going to here. Can you see that?
Oh, I'm seeing a
all right, hold on.
Article. I'm seeing an article.
Yeah, we're going for the article 2.
I'm back to your cloud recording thing.
Yeah, I got to get this down. You think I'd be practicing this beforehand.
You can edit it all out.
New share. There we go. We still on the share?
We're still on the cloud recording thing, yeah.
All right. Let's try again. Let's stop the share. I'm going to go back again and
Oh, baby, there's some players in that picture.
So was this, I've got actually this, and I've got actually, where's my other one? I'm going to pull up another one actually that I want your feedback from, which is, I can't give away all of my secrets because
There it is.
I'm trying to paint a story here.
Okay.
So tell me about this team.
That was a good team. We were on the middle of a long run, about 6 years of not losing, maybe losing a game or two in 6 years during that period of time. Those were ninth grade boys. I look in there now, and there's Rob Greenlee, who you may know, who's
Yeah.
he does podcasts for a living. He's great, number 50 there. He was a 6'5" eighth grader right there, number 50. I see Dennis. I see the guy who is the CEO for a one of the cruise lines. Okay. I see a guy who's an executive at Costco. I see a PhD child psychologist who's at University of Tennessee. I see, oh man, I see some great ones in there. They're just great kids. That was a team that wasn't they were really athletic. They were really good defensively, and they had a couple of players who could just flat stroke it. One of them was a kid named Rob Rask, who went on and played basketball and football at the University of Washington.
I remember Rask.
Doug Coatsworth went on and played at Harvard, and then he's the one who was a PhD. I just see a bunch of kids who are great dads, and some of them grandfathers now, I think. But no, that was I see my assistant coach, Gary Adrian, sitting watching, and he was a lifetime friend of mine, grew up with him, and got a chance to coach together.
So this was your first coaching gig.
It was my first school. It wasn't my
first school. Yeah. Besides the 13-year old, this is the first one where you actually got like a paycheck every week.
You know what? I think the paycheck for coaching at that time was about $300 for a season. And, you didn't do it for the money. Those kids right there.
So when were you in the beginning phase of your coaching journey with these guys, or were
This
you like,
was probably 7 or 8 years into it. Yeah, probably 7 years into it. So
and
there's some great ones in there.
let me see here. We got another one here.
Oh, baby.
So how many of this team, how many of these kids can you name?
Every one of them. 54, they're standing right next to me. Paul Buckingham just passed away. Paul had a stroke, and he was a big, strong kid. He was a better football player than basketball player, but he had a stroke, and I actually went down and spent time with him in the hospital quite a bit, just going through his rehab and kind of helping him. He was probably about your age, Kev, late 50s when he passed. He just passed this last year. He was doing well. He had gone back home. We were staying in good contact, and his wife called, and he had a heart attack and died. 52's Tad Lawrence, and I talked to him yesterday, as a matter of fact, just checking on his parents, and he was a heck of a kid, man. And then, yeah, I can name every one of them. Yep.
So what year was this in your?
That was 1976. 1976. We didn't lose a game in any sport that year. I coached football, basketball, baseball. We didn't lose a game. in any sport. That was a pretty good group of kids. They
So
didn't
you
have
must
a lot of those games.
so you must have thought you were like a pretty good coach at this point.
Um,
A hot shot coach.
I didn't ever think that. I think I had a pretty good judge of, we had a great group of kids coming through. And like I said, we were in the middle of about a 6 or 7, maybe even an 8-year run where we were pretty, pretty tough. I knew I could get kids to play hard. I knew I could get kids to play together. Uh, and it was just a matter of, you know, having some ability where they could score. So these guys had it. These guys really had it. And
So
that's a nice group.
this is 76. So you have 77, 78. You were still at Hayek, or did you move over to Sammamish?
No, in 77, 78, what did I do? I stayed there, but I went to BCC. Actually, I actually would, during this time, a lot of time during my coaching in junior high, I did both. I would coach at the junior high, but because our season was shorter, and we didn't play on the weekends and stuff, I could go to the high school and volunteer help. And those were friends of mine that I was coaching. So I'd actually go to the high school and kind of be a volunteer assistant coach with just out of friendship, because they were my guys, you know. And it was
Because you actually had them when they were in junior high.
I
So
actually had it for
you
6
had a
years.
good relationship with them.
Yeah, and you know, Kev, it's something I used to tell people all the time. Junior high is an odd age. It's, you know, the kids are making so many changes, and
Tell
and
me
I
about it.
I actually love that age because it's tough. It's a tough age for kids, and so having somebody there, and basically they haven't chosen a path yet. You know, with the kids you work, the young ones, they haven't really chosen a path yet. So you're kind of standing next to them. And you go, okay, straight and stop, a little to your left. Okay, stop. Okay, a little to your right. You know, and so you're guiding them through that.
Yeah,
And you know, when you start coaching high school and college kids, a lot of those kids have already chosen a path and they're kind of entrenched in it, and they try to pull them out of maybe bad things. Where
right.
you didn't have. And the other good thing about junior high was I never felt like I had it for 3 years. I always had it for 6, at least 6 years. I always felt like I had them for that full length of time. So I I I coached just ninth graders. I didn't ever coach 7th or 8th graders.
So how'd you meet Coach Woods?
I would go up and volunteer helping them, and I helped him with the summer camps. And so he used to run summer camps, and we would go up and we'd work 6 weeks of summer camps, and then the basketball tournament, the summer tournament we'd have afterwards. So
Yeah,
we go from one session from like 8 till 11, another one from 12 to 3:30 or 4, and then the tournament start. We do that for 6 straight weeks, and we get a T-shirt. It was like. Ernie, man, we get those light blue T-shirts at Bellevue.
with the BCC logo on it.
Yeah,
I
but
had a few of those. Matter of fact, I think I found the last one. It was in I was looking for something, and it was in an old steamer trunk, and it was like, of course I made the mistake of actually like trying to like try it on. It was like, all moldy and everything, and of course I couldn't fit it. So I wound up actually let me turn this down.
yeah, I think if I have any left, I think my daughters have them. They go through when you're old, they go through your clothes and they remember. Oh, I love that one, Dad. Can I have it? Or actually, they don't even ask me; they just take it.
So why didn't I ever like? I don't even remember you like being anywhere around like when I was a freshman.
I don't think that year I was healthy.
78, 79.
Yeah, I think I might have been at Sammamish that year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went up. Rodney Taylor, Tommy Taylor. I was there that year.
Yeah.
I was
77.
Yeah.
77, 78. I was still I was a junior in high school then. That was a year like I was 1 year removed or 2 years removed. So you were there that year, then you went to Sammamish, and then Ernie suffered burnout. He had a burnout. I guess that was what happened with him, why he decided to take that year off. And he was trying to like get me to he wanted me to sit out for the year and wait. And I was just too afraid that I wasn't going to go back to school, because I had promised my parents that I was going, my mother especially, that I was going to, go to college and graduate. So
And you were better than that level. I mean, you were as good as a player as there was at that level. And so your kids go to junior college to get out of there and to go on to something else. That's why they're there. And
yeah,
you know what? It's junior college is when I talk to coaches about it, I talk about it's a very interesting place to coach. The challenge of building a team. There's some challenges that are innate to a junior college that you don't get anywhere else. So you're going out and you're recruiting these kids who all wish they were playing for a Division I school, and all kind of have these hopes because they're good players. So they have these hopes of playing at a higher level, and then they're like disappointed when their only option is junior college. And so you bring in 12 guys, they were all in their high school, they were the captain, leading scorer, inspirational, best player in their high school, every one of them. And now you put them together and they're at a junior place where they really don't want to be, and only 5 of them start. And the truth is they're only there to get out. So if they get out after 1 year, so you're taking, and the only way you get out is to shine individually. And so you're taking that mentality and you're turning them into a team. And for me, I love that. I mean, that's a unique challenge with all those factors to take kids like that and turn them into a close-knit team that plays for each other. Uh, that was fun.
so having said that, here we go. Now we're really going to go back into the Wayback Machine. So we've got you when you took over. If you could go back and talk to this guy, what would you tell
Don't wear a tie. That's what
no, no tie.
no tie. You know what? It was good, Kev, because I think I was 31 or 32 when I coached that you guys, and I know I think Kenny was I think 24, if I'm not mistaken. Kenny Salyer was.
Yeah, he had kids.
I think so. So here I was, and I went from coaching junior high to coaching junior college in one jump, and it was probably a blessing that I really didn't know what I didn't know. And so for me, it was the game was basically the same. It was just played quicker and higher. And so for me, I really it caused a lot of growth for me because I was working hard because I wanted to be good for you guys. I didn't and when Jim Harriman hired me, he said, Bruce, he says, I don't know if you'll be here for 1 year, if Ernie's going to come back or not, or if you'll be here for 20. So if you can take it under those conditions. And I said, absolutely. It's what a great growth opportunity it is for me, and I'll do the best I can for these kids. But yeah, that's.
So here you go. Your first year community college, and you got this ragtag group of individuals. What are you thinking? What's your thought process right now? Do you have anything to work with? Did you even?
Oh yeah, I knew I had stuff to work with.
Okay. Speaking of which, you had you're talking about guys that think that they should have been playing Division I, and they were like the hot shots at their high school. You had you had Ron.
And Woj.
You had Woj. Two guys.
Yeah, that was, and you know what? When I recruited them, I got to know who else was recruiting them what four-year schools were recruiting them. And I stayed really close, but I stayed in the background. And I was just looking for the right time. And then what I did is when I recruited Ronnie first, I had him recruit Woj. Uh, and then I look and I knew you could play like crazy. And I remember because I watched you in the summer. Um, I didn't know Kevin Waltari very well. Strutt came on kind of out of nowhere. I
Yeah.
went after Brad Bowser. I didn't know Michael. Michael was coming off of a knee surgery, and I really didn't know, honestly, if he was going to be able to play at all. And there's a guy who should have sat out. He should have sat out that year and really rehabbed his knee, but he was bound and determined to play. But I really wanted Bowser. He was an older kid. He had sat out a couple of years. But I remember watching him play in high school, and he was such a good role player. He was kind of so understated in his game. He was really good offensively. He's very, very intelligent, very
Sneaky.
aware.
He was sneaky.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, he used to wear those black high tops. And I said, why? And he said, they make me look deceptively slow. Do you ever remember that? They make me look deceptively slow. That was bad. Matter of fact, I had a really good interchange with him about a month or so ago, because he says his grandkids don't even believe he played at all. So I sent him all a bunch of stats and pictures and all kinds of stuff. But and then Joe DeRozier came out of Puyallup, and
Joey D.
He was a cowboy. I mean, he's just a tough kid, Jay Wilson came out of Everett. Jay lives across the water from us now, and I get to go with him a couple times a year for breakfast and stuff. No, that was, there's a couple other kids who I really wanted, who I didn't get. And I'd gone in to see some guys who I knew were really good recruiters to talk about recruiting. And the ones I didn't get wasn't because of recruiting, it was because one had signed a professional baseball contract, and his dad didn't want him playing because you could do both. He could have come back and played JC ball. His dad didn't want him to do that in case he got hurt.
Because he got hurt.
John Edwards, who was a defensive back for the University of Washington. God, I love Johnny. You would have loved John. He was about a 6'4", just skinny kid who just tougher than heck, a football player. Played at Interlake High School, and he would have been a great addition on that group. No, I knew there were some guys that could play. I didn't know how it was going to fit together. I look back, I think there's some people I didn't utilize as well as I should have. There's some people who I probably should have given bigger roles to, or maybe different roles. But yeah, I thought that was fun. That was fun.
So I'm gonna set a kind of a scenario for you and see what your thought process was during that time. So this is actually from the Sports Line. They used to put it out every year. This is from February 11th, 1980.
Right. So about a month before the season ended.
Yep. So there we are at Bellevue. We're like sitting at 1, 2, 3, 4th place. 8-6. Right. 5 days earlier, we had just gotten blown out by Green River by 20.
Yeah.
All right. So here you are. You're at this stage. Are you at a prove it stage for? I mean, we're like just a couple of games over 500. We're in 4th place probably not gonna make a high seed in the playoffs. What's your mindset right now? How are you gonna like keeping us from actually imploding at this point?
I wasn't worried about imploding at all, Kev. I had you, and I had your leadership, and and I had kids who I trusted. I wasn't worried about that at all. I honestly um, was one of those guys who was trying to learn throughout the whole season, and then when the games counted, to be able to put together our best group and our best strategies. Um, so where we were in the standings really wasn't as important to me as long as we got into the postseason. We had also, if you remember right, had gone through a period of time where we had that car accident and we lost 4 kids for a while, and we were
Yep.
playing about 7 or 8 guys.
Josh had hurt his neck.
Yeah, yeah, and Michael was hurt and those, they got in that car accident, and we were playing, we were playing down 4 or 5 guys, and
Yeah,
we're playing with a rotate. We have 7 people or 8 people,
I remember.
and so I knew if those guys could come back and that might have a chance to really gel. I also looked at whenever we got beat, whenever somebody would beat us, I would go home and I would, for the next week or so, I'd be thinking, okay, and what did they do? You know, how did that happen? What can we do next time we play them? So I don't know if you remember when we played Green River. The next time they switched everything. They used to switch everything, and they were big and they were talented. They were by far the most talented team there. Um,
They killed us twice.
they
beat
killed us
twice
I mean,
during
they were
the regular
6'8"
season.
or 6'9" across the board, and our tallest kid was 6'4", and so. But they switched everything defensively, which caused us issues. And so I thought one of the ways to beat them was to put some doubt in their mind of whether they should or shouldn't switch, because they've been successful doing just that all year long against everybody. And so I don't even know if you remember, we just made a couple of small changes. One of them, we ran a small guy. We'd run Bollinger to the block and you out on the wing on our break. Okay. And then we'd screen down. So Bollinger would have a small guy on him and they'd switch it. So he's outside there going against a bigger guy who can't defend him on the perimeter, or whoever it was, who are our perimeter players. And we had a smaller guy on you. Well, we ran about 5 or 6 possessions against them like that, and timeout. And all of a sudden, okay, don't switch that. Okay, then we did something else that caused some other confusion. And there was another timeout, and it's like, okay, well, let's don't switch that either. So it's like, so all of a sudden they were doing something totally different than they'd done all year. Switch this, but don't switch that. And then they went straight man against us, which they weren't able to do that. And then the other thing too is, I don't know if you remember, during that game, I had really good trust in all of our guys, even though they maybe weren't as skilled. But remember, we used to have that discipline team.
The
and
Swarm.
Yeah.
The Swarm.
And I remember that game, that Green River game, which was to go to state. It was pretty close. It was in the 70s or something like that. And it was 72, 71 or something like that. And I remember telling those guys, okay, you guys have 3 minutes, okay, or until you lose 4 points. So you might last 10 seconds, okay? You have 3 minutes or until you lose 4 points to the score. And in your goal, Mission Impossible thing, your goal is to double the speed of the game. So we're going to press, we're going to run and jump, we're going to attack on the break and like have a 7-second shot clock. So I want you to go in and double the speed of the game. So you guys all came out, sat down, got a break. Those guys went in and it was just chaos. Okay, I don't know if you remember, it was just chaos. And I think they played their full 3 minutes, maybe even a little bit longer. And I don't think anybody scored. It was just, like this.
But they warmed down. They warmed down, and we came back in the game, and we would we would go ahead.
We went on a 10-2 run, and it was game over. I remember it was like it was yesterday.
That's crazy. I remember it too. you know, like I said, the swarm. I remember the swarm, and that was like, you know, going back, I read a bunch of the old articles just to kind of like get a feel again for, you know, where we were and how, you know, when you would talk to reporters, it was always about us. It was always we as a team, and how everybody actually had roles, and everybody actually was included into the mix. It wasn't just about like me or, you know, or Ron. You know, you always talked about how, you know, everybody's got a place, and everybody's got some kind of role that they needed to fill, you know, to make us a successful team, because we weren't the biggest team. You know, we were like by far one of the smallest teams, even though I was like a pretty good rebounder, but we were one of the smaller teams, but we were feisty. And you know, that always like that always stuck with me, you know, just looking back. So here we go. We're gonna go to so we get through those 3 games, basically, where that in itself was a a feat, just from the simple fact that we had to win 3 games on the road to actually get to states, and we beat all of the top seeds to actually get there, which was, you know, I always tell people that, you know, it doesn't matter how you start, it's always like it's how you finish. But so we make it there, and we make it to states, and I didn't really think about this until actually I pulled out this newspaper, right? And it was a newspaper in the Walla Walla paper, and it had all the teams. It was like a synopsis of all the teams, and we were on the last page. We were like almost like we were an afterthought. And I'm wondering if, you know, if you ever read this about this and saw this, and how you felt about this. If, you know, were you okay with us being like, you know, kind of underdogs and flying under the radar, not being as good as you know, some of the other teams, and as heralded as some of the other teams? Or did that piss you off and make you want to prove that we were as good as them or even better?
I knew how good we were. I knew we could play with anybody. You did not know this, I don't think. I don't think you guys were there. I don't think the players were there, but there was a banquet before the state tournament, and it was a bunch of reporters, and then there's a whole bunch of boosters, and they opened it up to the people from Walla Walla, and all the coaches, excuse me, got up and kind of talked about their team a little bit, and then we got asked some questions. Well, our opening opponent was Grace Harbor. You remember that?
Yep.
Harbor was huge, huge. Okay. Anyway, I remember a couple things about that banquet. One of them was how stupid I felt after, because I was first. They had me speak first. So I got up there and I said, you know, we got a whole bunch of really nice little guys. And they just play really hard, and we love each other. And we're just happy to be here. Okay. That's okay. And which is what I had planned to say. I wasn't going to try to blow us up or anything. And I wasn't going to give anybody any ammunition. But then the next guy gets up, they introduce the next guy, and he gets up, and he's obviously been there before. So he starts thanking people. I want to thank our AD, and the AD said, you know, and I want to thank them. And here's our president, you know, and I'm thinking, I didn't thank anybody. I didn't recognize anybody. And this guy, before he talks about this, he gets up and he's all polished and he's doing all this stuff. And I'm thinking, oh man, what an idiot. So anyway, they go through all the coaches, and then they open it up to reporters. And one of the first questions was to me. And they said, Coach, how is your group of guys, with the tallest kid being 6'4", how are you going to match up with Grays Harbor with their front line all 6'8", 6'9"? How are you going to match up with those guys? And I don't know whether I should have said this or not, because it could have set them on fire. But I said, how's Grays Harbor going to match up with us? which of those 6'8" guys, which of those 6'9" guys is going to check my 6'4" jet? Okay, how are they going to match up with us? I said, I think that's where the worry is. And I just left it at that. And that was the game. I mean, we ran. I remember, I don't know how much you remember about that. I remember that game so well. Is Grays Harbor made their first 6 shots of the game. Somehow we got the opening tip and we scored first, okay? Then they went 6 for 6 from the field, didn't miss, no offense, just swish, 6 for 6 from the field, and they were down 14-12, and we hadn't set up yet. They had like 3 dunks and a Bollinger shot on the way. Well, it was all fast breaks. And they called a timeout, and their coach was on them so hard. Fellas, we haven't even missed the field and we're down. We can't, what's wrong? Get your butt back on. He was just all over me. And I thought, we got him. And that was how the whole thing is. And that's what kind of the way I thought about it is, how are they going to match up with us?
Of all the games during that tournament, of course, the one that always gets in my craw is that Wenatchee game.
I still lose sleep over that.
Shaking your head, and I'm still, I think about that game as you always, when you're a competitor, you always like the games that got away are the ones that stick with you forever. They're throwing dirt in your face, and those are the ones that you're looking at. And you hate to say, that somebody actually took something from you, or basically cheated you out of the win, because everybody's got equal chance. But that game was not the we were not supposed to lose that game. So
that was one of the hardest days that I've been through as a coach. That was undeserved, and I try so hard. And something I had to learn to do as a coach is to block the officials out. You could get caught up in the officials to the point where you lose, you lose your thinking, and you can either coach your kids or you can coach the officials. So I really, over the years, really tried to block officials out and not let them be any factor in my mind. They're there, we need them, but they don't exist, kind of a thing. But that was
kind of hard to.
Really difficult.
I remember you chasing the official to the locker room.
I chased, but I remember I walked after him, and
No, you didn't walk after him. You chased after him. He was running too. He was trying to get away from you, and you were like, "How could you? How could you cheat these guys?"
And the calls that happened right down the stretch, Kev. I mean, you can remember them, and it was just like,
yeah, it was a walk on Mike where he hadn't even dribbled.
I know.
And there was a charge on me where I never even touched the guy.
No,
he just flopped. He did a flop.
There were 3 phantom calls, all within about 30 seconds. And I shouldn't even say this, but there were 2 officials from Eastern Washington, and the team we're playing against was the Eastern Washington team.
Yeah.
And I hate to even think that way, but it was just like, whoa. And yours was your 5th. And that was like, you got to be kidding. And then there was a no call, because we ran that play along the baseline where the guy with the ball ran, and then the other guy stepped in and took a charge, and absolutely no call at all. And it was like, okay, this wasn't meant to be. I've tried to forget that game, and I've tried to block the officials out of it, but I still remember their names.
And we still almost won. Had that bad bounce.
I know.
Bad bounce, right? guy shoots that free throw, right? We block out the way you're supposed to, and the ball takes this like almost like a straight 90-degree right turn, right, and drops right there, right, for them to pick it up, and they get another shot. You know, so you're right. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be.
I block that one out, Kev. I remember telling you guys after the game, because we had to turn around and play Everett for third, and we didn't even get out of there. I mean, I think we were eating after midnight. That was tough. But I remember telling you guys that I would understand. I wouldn't like it, but I would understand if you couldn't get up to play Everett the next day. We had already played them and beaten them, I think, 3 times.
But we did, because we're all players.
Yeah.
And when it came time to get the third place trophy, we all went down to go get it together.
Yep. And I as a competitor, I know how much that you guys hurt, and my mind was, I can't be upset at these guys if they come out tomorrow and they're still down. I can't. I got to be able to understand that. But that wasn't you guys. No, we throttled them, if you remember.
Oh yeah, there was no,
it was like 103
there was no place they were going to be able to hide.
No.
There was no place they were going to be able to hide.
Yeah.
We were going to take it out on. We were going to exact a certain measure of revenge on Everett.
Yes, that was, and I think looking back, I think that team that was up there at that time, I think like 4 of those guys ended up being ineligible. They had played like 5 years in college or something. Yeah, a bunch of those guys that were playing for them that ended up not legally being eligible. So yeah, that
so
was.
We have one more picture, and so if you knew what you know now, and you were talking to that guy right there, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
Kev, I use you as an example, and our business has spoken to over 1.8 million people, most of them coaches, a lot of them athletes. And I use that kid in that picture as an example. When I wrote this booklet called Life Lessons for Athletes, and this one called Compete, you were in my head on those things. I was writing about you, and I was writing about some of the other great young men who I've coached. That kid right there just checked all the boxes as far as what you're looking for in an athlete and a teammate. Selfless, even though he's very, very talented. Accountable. Absolutely driven. Unbelievable competitor. Selfless, like I said. Honest. Person of integrity. So everything you look for in your athletes was you checked every one of those boxes, buddy. I mean, just you took care of yourself academically. It was just fun coaching you, and for me it was like, I remember thinking that might be the best kid I ever coached as far as the whole package. The ability mixed with the character piece. I remember thinking that might be the best kid I ever coached. So that's what I tell that kid. The leadership too. Just the way you led, mainly by example, but occasionally with your words. Your work habits, how hard. I remember doing that help your buddy run or ask for help run, and we were on 12 minutes, and most people, as soon as you run into the point where you felt like you couldn't go anymore, you'd raise your hand and your buddy would come in and run for you. And I remember you wouldn't come out. I mean, I'll never forget that. I use that in the presentation I do called positive conditioning.
It's funny because it's 40 years, right? And there's things that you say, that you have said, that I still use to today. Like I do like when I'm doing my classes, and I have, what I call follow the leader, right? Where basically everybody's working, you got one person in front that's basically leading, with an exercise. And then there's a bunch of other people behind doing other exercises, and they can't stop until the one leader is done. And so I'm always out there, and I use that phrase, help your buddy, help your teammates, right? You gotta get your thing done so the other people don't suffer. And if you do that, everybody's gonna pick it up, and basically, you'll help each other keep from suffering through these exercises that are, not the greatest exercises to do. Yeah, they suck, but I remember that help your buddy. I mean, that was like, that's was one of the things, especially when I went to Poly. It's like, don't you guys ever do anything like that? Where you basically have, the you see who's pulling for who and who's not pulling for the others, who's willing to tap out, and basically it's all about them. So that was one of the great things about, that team. And we're still in contact. I'm in contact with Brad. I'm in contact with, only person I'm in contact with, Joe. I see him on Facebook all the time. Mike, I haven't talked to in a while. I need to find him, because we have a lot of like history together. So you went from Bellevue to coach in Seattle. Was it the Seahawks, or you went to scouting?
I actually went back to junior high kill. And the guy who had filled in for me was a long guy who had coached with me for a long time, and he had taken over that ninth grade job. And I went back and let him stay. I wasn't gonna like push it, hey, I'm coming back. I need, I did something that was one of the most fun things I've ever done in my career. In those days, we used to have to cut a lot of kids. Now with all these travel teams and stuff, everybody's kind of gets cut when they're like 9 and 10, and so the high school coaches don't really, it's like 12 guys try out because everybody knows. Well, in those days, we used to have like 120 kids try out. And you're cutting down to 15. So I took all the other ones, every other kid wanted to play, and we ran a morning basketball league. And we would practice in the morning, and once a week in the morning we would play, and we would just, it was hilariously fun. Had kids of all different abilities, and I talked to a couple other schools, and they're kind of doing the same thing. So we didn't cut any kids at that age, and we'd go over and we'd play them. And sometimes we'd just play. Sometimes we'd like play for an hour and didn't even keep score. You just play for an hour. You'd have 3 courts going, and and we just play. Sometimes we play first team to 100. Sometimes so we just play all kinds of stuff, and so I got a chance to. And that wasn't even a paid job. That was just, I just love where I am. I love these kids. And then I think I started working for the Seahawks, but I wasn't coaching there, Kev. I was actually evaluating kids for the draft. And I did that for about 8 years, where I was evaluating college players for the NFL draft. And we were part of a combine. So we shared reports with Dallas, Buffalo, Seattle, and San Francisco. So I was with a 4-team combine of evaluating kids for the draft. And
I remember you telling me about football. If you don't love it, don't play it.
That's right. You could have been, but you know what? You got to love football.
Oh, I played football in high school.
I know.
I was actually, you talk about the kids getting, cut. I got cut from my freshman basketball team. So I was like, it was traumatic, because I was sure I was going to make that team. And when they cut me, I was like, I just got cut from the freshman team. I'm in the 9th grade. What do I do now? And I wound up going and running on the track team. And then playing football, JV football. So I love football. I would have probably played both sports, but my going into my junior year, the football coach wanted me to make he wanted me to choose between football and basketball. And he said, either or, you're not going to be able to play both. I go, why not? Why can't I? Why can't I play both? I mean, the seasons are completely different. And he wouldn't let me play. He wouldn't let me play both. So I said, all right, I guess I won't play football. And which I was like the second fastest guy on the varsity and JV. There was only 165 pound kid that was faster than me, and I was like 200 pounds, almost 6'3", and could jump. And he wouldn't let me like play both. I mean, it was like the most ridiculous thing ever.
That's
But
selfish. And coaches get entrenched in that mentality of being territorial, and it's not good for kids.
so when did you start? When did you start with coming up with the idea of proactive coaching and actually coaching coaches?
You know what, Kev? I would like to think that I was intentional about everything. And we talk about being intentional, doing everything by design. But when I look back at the way this started and the way it's gone, a lot of it's just been God's hand on the whole thing. It wasn't something I designed. Okay. So for me, you first start getting asked to speak at coaching clinics when your teams have done real well and everybody wants to know your secrets. What inbounds plays do you run against zone? I mean, what do you do? How do you defend the wing T? So our teams have been very successful. So I started getting invited to speak at these clinics, and I was thinking, what have I got to tell these people? Well, it went pretty well. And so it got to the point where I was speaking at the same clinics enough times. I was like, there's one down in Northern California in San Francisco that I was at like 5 years in a row, talking about technical things. And I was there enough that I finally got a chance to know the people who were running it. I mean, really know them, so I could go up and talk to them. So I said, you know what, you guys, I'm always honored to be here. I love talking about the technical parts of the game. But the truth is, I don't think that's why we're winning. I mean, you're having me down here because our teams are successful, but I don't think that's why we're winning. And they said, well, talk to us. And I said, I think it's this intentionality of a character-based culture and the other things that we're doing, non-X's and O's. And they said, you start talking on that. And that was a big reach for them. There were only a few people in the country that were talking about coaching from a non-technical standpoint. And most of them were sports psychologists, Thomas Tutko, Ken Ravizza. There were some people who were sports psych guys who were doctors in sports psychology that were speaking, and so for me to get a chance to be on a stage and do that kind of stuff, it was really different. And then it just simply went by word of mouth. And so then we started getting invitations to come to individual schools and work with individual people, or individual coaches, or with a whole school kind of a thing. And then the NAI, who the NAI is, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, about 300. At that time, there were about 400 small colleges, about 60-70% of faith-based schools. The NAI came to me, and at that time, I had gone through, and I had retired from public school, which I would have never done, but you actually got penalized retirement if you stayed beyond 30 years. If you stayed beyond 30 years, you got penalized in retirement because they're trying to get rid of all the people at the top of the salary schedule and bring in younger people, which is good, but less money is it wasn't a youth thing, it was a money. And so I had been at a private school, and then I went to Northwest University, and I was there as an athletic director and helping with basketball. So that was part of it. That was an NAI institution. And the NAI came to me and they said, we've got this concept called champions of character. You've got the content. We don't have the content. We just got this concept of who we want to be, this vision of who we want to be as an organization. You've got the content. Would you bring it to us? So that put me on a whole lot of stages for about 8 or 9 years, I traveled 14 to 15, 16 days a month, just going from small college to small college to small college, and
A lot
met
of frequent flyer miles.
a lot of miles, tons of great people. Just, you just, uh, what I call the greatest coaches you'll never hear of. These people working in these small little places, out of the way places that nobody will ever know about. And Danny Miles won over 1,000 games at Southern Oregon, or excuse me, at OIT, Oregon Institute of Technology. Danny Miles, I mean, nobody even knows who he is. He's a phenomenal coach. So that kind of springboarded um, into the proactive coaching. I was an English minor, so I wasn't a total idiot, So I mean, I wasn't a complete idiot as far as that's concerned. And I had a guy call me who ended up being a publisher, and he said, I had a friend who attended one of your presentations call me and said, if this guy would have had a book, he'd have sold 1,000 copies. So this guy called me and said, have you ever written anything? I said, I haven't written anything. He goes, well, why don't you start writing something? So I said, what am I going to write? And so anyway, he goes, well, how about we do this? He said, he is a big publisher. He goes, I've got a bunch of coaches who are really well known who want to write books, but really don't have the time. How would you like to ghostwrite? So I don't know if I ever told you that. So,
No.
so the first guy I did ghostwriting for was Bob Huggins.
No, get out.
No. And so what they do is I think I wrote 6 books for Bob Huggins. And the publisher said, some of them he's got like a manuscript that he got started, but he just needs to have it just polished and finished. That was like the first couple. And then the other ones were like, he's got these ideas and he just wrote these ideas down. I need somebody to come in and do this book. And so anyway, after I'd done a few of those, he said to me, he said, hey, you write okay. And he said, why don't you write something yourself? So that's what got me started there. So
not bad for the English major.
Yeah. So, and I don't consider myself a writer. I write like I talk, which some people think is good because it's simple. I don't try to glamorize stuff so, but then the booklet thing started after I'd written a book or two. I'd go and I'd be presenting to one group on a specific topic. And in order for them to get the support material for that topic, they have to buy the whole book to get that chapter. And I thought, that's dumb. So I basically took these booklet things, somewhere between 16 and 40 pages, which is basically a chapter, and I just self-published.
I still have mine.
That's
I still
good.
have the ones you sent me.
That's good.
I actually use them, believe it or not. So the concepts are all like, are all valid concepts, especially when I had, when I delved back into coaching again, like you said, I was doing, when it's kind of a off the beat story, but still kind of appropriate because, when I started playing basketball again, the reason why I started playing basketball is because I took a volunteer job coaching 8 and 9-year-olds. And then, 10 and 12-year-olds in a rec league, right? So I'm there and I'm watching these kids, right? I've got 8 kids, right? They're all herding cats, you're trying to get them all all focused. The basket's here, boys and girls, right? You take it, you shoot it from here, right? And then you watch them and they're like, well, why'd you do that? I don't know. And you're like, but that purity of thought, that purity of thought actually brought the joy back to basketball, because I kind of soured on basketball because I couldn't do any of the things I used to be able to do. And it's it became not even about that anymore. It was about the love of the game, the listening to the ball hit the ground, the, the little, rhythm that you heard in your head, when you were like, when you were moving and when you were like, about to make a move, the power and the grace of all of it, brought me back to the game. And, just trying to impart that to kids, right? And using some of the concepts in your book. The one thing, here is one thing I go back to, this picture of you. Can you still see that picture from Hayek? Are we back? We back to, hold on, let me go back. I'm gonna have, I keep, share the screen, share the screen.
I'm zooming with the Cleveland Indians to this afternoon, and
Here we go.
I'm gonna have to do some practicing after watching this.
So, the one thing that, one of the things that is always, that I've always had with you is that eye contact. Eye contact with the players. Are they engaged with you? Are they not engaged with you? Right? Looking to see, are they looking at 10,000 other things other than looking at you when you're actually talking to them. So when I would coach, right, or I'm talking to my kids, coaching them in here, right, if they're like not looking at me, I'm like, hey, over here, look at me, right?
Both eyes, both ears. That's
Both
my
eyes, both ears. And I would tell them, I would go, look, if you're not looking at me, if you're not like, if you're not looking at me or your ears aren't, you're not focused on me, that means you're not listening to what I'm saying. And so you're not going to grasp it. So we need to like get that. This is like, coaching connection 101. And so now the kids all, they all get that. And it's actually it's a good thing. But that's one of the things I learned from you, besides this.
You're raising a fist, aren't you? I can't see it.
No, it wasn't a fist. I just needed to raise my hand. If I fouled somebody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If I didn't foul them,
That's right.
I wouldn't put up, and I took that to Polly.
Yeah.
I took that simple thing to Polly.
The Hayek thing, the first school I ever taught at, and it's been amazing, Kev. Almost everything that is important in my life is now done by Hayek kids. They're my guys, my attorney, my financial guy, my insurance guy, my physicians, almost everybody who does anything for me in my life that's important is done by those guys. And I've still got, they do a golf tournament up here on our island once a year. And, there'll be 80 guys show up on a Saturday morning and they'll go over and have a big barbecue. And they're exactly where they're, I was going to tell you that.
Here we go, right here.
That's you. That's a picture of you.
Nope, I've got another one.
Okay.
Are these the Hayek guys?
I'm not seeing it.
Up. Let's make sure up. Let's go.
Yes. Yes. Look at those guys. Look at those old guys. Oh my goodness. The guy on the right, the short guy, the bald guy, he was my assistant coach. So he wasn't somebody I coached. He's about 12 years older than I am. But no, that group, they called me and they said, Coach, we want to come up and see you. And it was like, great. I know you guys live all over the country. I mean, Mark Thompson lives in Chicago and Ralph lives in Southern California. Anyway, I said, I'd love to see you all, but you don't need to all try to do it all one day because I just love to see you. But trying to coordinate the whole thing might be too much. They said, no, we're all coming. And so that was a team. Anyway, the two people that didn't make it was one of them was a high school principal who was on his first family vacation in like 20 years, and they're in Hawaii. The other one was a doctor who was doing surgery that day. So, but these guys all showed up, and I got to tell you something. They were from 1971. They were one of my very first teams that I coached. They're all they're all mid 60s now.
Yep.
They went back. I just sat back and just laughed all day because they went right back to who they were 50 years earlier. Teasing, joking, just like you're in the locker room and the way they used to tease each other, and and it was for me, it was priceless.
You never lose that.
Never lose.
It's like I was on a Zoom call with a bunch of my guys that I grew up with, and we've known each other since elementary school. It's that same thing. I'm sure you can probably relate with it. You all meet in the neighborhood, right? You usually start out with being cordial to each other. You get into fist fights. You basically figure out who's the top dog and who's the next dog, and then you become friends. And then so, hey, you want to go play football? Hey, you want to go play basketball? So we've had that same group, right, for 40 years. We're on a Zoom call. There's like 10 of us. One of them actually is he's the VP of officiating for the NFL. I've known him since we were in elementary school. Matter of fact, we played an orchestra together. He was a cellist, and I I played stand-up bass, string bass.
Nice.
And same thing. Whenever we get together, it's all about jokes. They're just joking on each other, cracking on each other, just like your guys here.
I call that shared joy.
Shared joy. Another.
It's something like great teams have, and it happens when you're playing together. And when I'm trying to teach it, I'll define it by saying it's where you're in the locker room and you're looking across the locker room in each other's eyes. And sometimes you're looking through big laughter and smiles, and sometimes you're looking through tears. But there's a feeling in that locker room that nobody else on the outside, no matter how big of a fan they are, nobody else on the outside will ever understand that feeling. It's all the work you put in. It's the discipline that it's just how much you've given of yourself to the group. Some people on the outside will never understand that. And I said, if you've ever been in a team like that, I said, you can ask your coaches. And if they've ever been on a team like they go back 30 years and they could name everybody in the room. Because when you experience that kind of shared joy, which is the good kind of pride, the shared joy, it forms lifetime friendships. And these kids are lifetime friends. And like I said, the two in the front just turned 65. They had their Medicare birthdays, and they were both called me and were celebrating like crazy. And the one with the black shirt on is a VP at Oppenheimer. He's big high in Oppenheimer. And I mean, I look at these guys, I can still see them as 14, 15-year-olds.
Okay, so we're gonna pivot a little bit here, and I need to get your feedback on something here. Stop the share. I gotta make sure I share it. That's my problem.
Hi, my name is Bruce Brown. This is my wife Dana. We're the founders of Proactive Coaching.
Our proactive team is excited to introduce a new service on our website, Proactive Plus Membership.
And the purpose of the Proactive Plus membership group is to provide more in-depth materials, videos, personal interaction, and to build a connected community of character-based coaches. We're really honored to have over 700,000 followers on our Facebook page, but the truth is our posts are just the tip of the iceberg. And we want to get back to our original mission of focusing on coaches who are truly invested in this profession. As you can imagine, with that many people, it's not practical in any way to try to keep up with the messages, the phone calls, and the emails. But with a smaller group, being accessible it will be our top priority.
Information will be updated on a monthly basis, and we will provide the members a list of the topics prior to each month. Keep your eye on our site and our Facebook page for more information about registration. Thank you.
What do you want to talk about there? First of all, I'm way over my head in marriage.
Well, I wanted to talk to the real, I wanted you to talk about the real CEO of Proactive Coaching.
You know what? The coaches' wives are critical, and they've got to understand the profession. They've got to understand the emotions that go with it. They've got to understand, why it's so important to you. Well, and she coached, so she gets it. So she was a gymnastics and a track coach.
Yeah.
And so she totally understands the profession. And no, that's my part.
I remember the first time you actually drove down in the Brownmobile.
Yellow bug.
the powder blue Brownmobile
Yeah.
with the Klan. And
you know what? I painted that baby myself.
No, you didn't.
I did.
No, you
It was
didn't.
yellow. It was yellow. And then it's starting to fall apart and stuff. And so I thought, I'm not going to pay somebody to paint this. How tough could it be to paint a car? So I painted that thing.
I could actually see that on a coach's salary with 3 girls, right? I could just see that there you are, being sensible about it, probably your dad's sensibility, you actually like painting that thing. But how much does your wife actually help with the whole, with proactive coaching? I mean, I'm sure she's like the rock that kind of the glue that kind of holds it all together, because you're like especially when you're on the road, and you had the kids were still I'm still home. I'm sure she was probably like kind of holding the family, everything together while you were, out doing what you love.
Yeah.
So
particularly, Kev, even after the kids were gone, when my mom and dad were here, my mom with Alzheimer's, and she's an angel. She loves my parents. She loved my parents, but I mean, it was nonstop care. I mean, and like I said, we built a guest house for them, so they had a separate place to live. But and I was traveling like crazy, so she was really doing everything. No, she's the rock of the whole thing. She's the one that grounds me. She's the one that gives me good perspective. She's the one that reels me back in when I get offline. She's my editor. She's really handled almost all the business aspects. I am not a business person. I do not have a business mind at all. So she's pretty much handled all that part of it. She's just, the longer we've been doing this, the more she kind of takes over. And we're actually kind of passing the torch right now to our partner, Rob Miller. We want this to live beyond us. So I don't know if I'll ever fully step out, but I pretty much stopped traveling just because this is a good time of life for us. Where we live is really
do you
nice.
still do the retreats at Camano?
Still do retreats. People who really want to or insist on working with me can come here. And we'll have coaches come from Texas and Boston, and Tim and Maggie Corbin, the Vanderbilt baseball coach, he and Maggie come up almost every summer for a few days. This year during the pandemic, they rented an RV and drove.
You're kidding me.
No, from Nashville.
From Nashville all the way to, oh my God.
I know. It was really fun. It was really fun. Yeah, I enjoyed traveling when I was doing it, but it got old, especially after 9/11. That made things so much harder. That's when I was basically just getting started, and man, it was tough. I don't miss traveling at all. I still will go. Almost the only places I travel anymore are based upon long-term friendships. People who I started working with a long time ago that we've now developed friendships. I'll always go back to West Point. I've been there 3 times. I'd always go back there. I'd always go to Vanderbilt with Corbin. I was Heather Tarr at the University of Washington, Chip Kelly down at UCLA now. I mean, there's a few places. There's probably a dozen places that I would go if they asked me to. But most of the time, those people now just come up here.
So how much longer you think you have with this before you completely, like, not completely pass the torch, but you're just kind of like sitting back, looking at the eagles, basically nesting in the trees around Kamano. So
I don't know if I'll ever really get out of it. What am I going to retire from? Living? I mean, this is fun for me. I don't do anything that I don't love.
it keeps you young.
You know what? I think keeps my mind young. I'm doing at least one more book. I've got one more book that I'm about a little over halfway through, called Coaching for Significance. And it's the premise of this is around 4 coaches, and 4 coaches who I admire, and what sets them apart. And the 4 coaches are Dick Vermeil, who is a football coach, NFL coach.
Yep.
And he was what I call a long distance mentor, somebody who I watched and admired and listened to and stuff like that without ever really getting to know him. Well, I got a chance to meet him when I was back in Philly working with the Eagles, and he came one day and we spent the day together. So I got a chance to connect with him. Pat Summitt, who is no longer with us, the great coach at the University of Tennessee.
Great coach at University of Tennessee.
And even though she's passed away, a mutual friend is the guy named Dean Lockwood, who's now the associate head coach at Michigan State women's basketball. And he coached with Pat as her assistant for, I think, 8 or 9 years. And then the other 2 coaches are Tim Corbin from Vanderbilt, Heather Tarr from University of Washington. So I have 2 people currently coaching, 2 people past coaches. And I interviewed Dean, took Pat's place. I interviewed all the coaches, and that was wonderful. I learned a lot. But really I've kind of changed direction on the book, because I asked him to give me names of former players and interview the players. And I'm actually going to write the whole book based upon what the players say about them and not what the coaches said about them. Okay, not what the coaches, I can probably put a few things in what the coaches said, but it's more powerful when it comes from the kids. And so Dick Vermeil, for example, it was really fun interviewing the people we've heard of, Kurt Warner and Trent Green, and, people who list the people he gave me that were NFL type players, really good ones. But the 2 people I enjoyed interviewing most for Vermeil were 2 guys who played for him when he was 23 years old at Hillsdale High School in California. They're 78 years old. They could go back and name plays that they opened every game with, what they ran on 4th and 1 at the goal line. They could recall exact words he had used when he got under the bus after the only game they lost. I mean, their memory, and both of them didn't get through the interview without crying. Pretty cool. Pat Summitt's players, I don't think I've had one of them get through the interview without getting really, really emotional, talking about her, as tough as she was. She was an ornery bugger,
She held them to a standard.
But
standards instead of rules.
That's right.
Standards instead of rules.
but they also knew that she loved it and talking about that side of her. And the same with Corbin's players and the same with Heather's players. So I'm writing it from the players' perspective on those coaches, trying to find out from them.
Hey, Dana.
I didn't know that this was a video. I thought it was a podcast. Sorry.
Say hello. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good. It's
Okay.
it's a whole family. It's a family. So
Good to see
there's
you.
no there's no editing here.
Okay.
So
So anyway, that's been a fun experience, and asking them questions like, what allowed you to trust them? Asking them questions like, what set this coach apart? Talking about their coaching style. How and why have you stayed in their life? And it's been, I'm trying to find, and when I'm writing this book, what I'm trying to do for coaches of the profession is to not say you can be like Pat Summitt or you can be like Tim Corbin. Nobody can have those personalities, but they're looking for things that those people do that anybody who cared could do better, even though they may not be able to be as organized and as Tim Corbin or as, I mean, even though they may not be able to do it as well as those people do, they could say, look, I can be better at this. I can get better at these parts of it that made these people special. So that's my next project. I'm not going anywhere, Kev.
I didn't think so. All right, I got one more thing here we're gonna get into. Let's see if I can pull this up. Let me see if I can pull this up. Make it happen.
Oh, baby.
So, I was looking for a picture with all three of your girls, and I wasn't sure because I haven't seen them all in like so long, but the reason why I know that they're all three of your daughters, the nose.
Hey, you be careful.
That's the brown nose.
Yes, it is.
They all- So
Yeah.
how important are they in your life? I know that, you do everything about, for your kids, but these are your kids and they're all healthy and they're all, actually, to tell you the truth, is it Allison that does the equine?
Shannon, that's the one in the white glasses.
Right. So I actually recommended one of my clients actually is she does dressage, and she has a horse, and her horse had actually come up lame, and the doctors were telling her that that her horse was never going to walk again, and that she was going to have to go through this whole big thing. I said, you know what, maybe you should look at I went to her website and basically said, you should probably look at doing something like this for your horse. I mean, I know she's like, kind of far away, but maybe she might be able to give you some ideas on what, what you should do with your horse. But I remember these young ladies now, when they were like, Allison, I'd have to like, she would like grab me around my legs or like grab my arm or something, basically, and, say hi, when you guys used to come down to San Luis Obispo. But I mean, give me some perspective on what they mean to you.
Oh, your family is the most important thing. I'm blessed to have great daughters, but hundreds and hundreds of sons as well. It just, the whole girl dad thing, that was before that was popular. I think that's something that I was always proud of.
Always overruled.
Yeah, always overruled. I finally got a male dog. We finally got a dog that was a male. It's like, thank goodness I finally got a little bit of help here. But, yeah, they're you just want them to be happy, Kev. You want to be happy in what they're doing, and that's why I'm so happy for Shannon, because she's really she, her horses have always been her passion and really her gift, and now she's able to make a living with her passion, and that's kind of what you root for your kids. Katie, the middle one, actually lived in Hawaii for 16 years. And I figured the only way we ever get her back is I needed to buy I bought her a little beach cabin on Camino. She lives about 8 miles from here now. So I had to drive her to get her home, because I thought I better get her home before I'm dead. So she, she's living up the road a little bit. And Allie's doing great. She just had her 4th baby. She and her husband wanted 4, and they wanted them bam, 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 bam. And so she's got 4 of them. The oldest is 5.5 years old. I mean, seriously, we FaceTime with them, Kev. I need a nap when I'm done. It's like, God gives you children when you're young for a reason. Oh my goodness. It's just constant noise and mom, 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 mom. But she loves it. She's a great mom. So no, it's yeah, it's pretty special, really special. But like I said, hundreds and hundreds of sons.
Yep, hundreds of sons. So what do you want your legacy to be when those 6 guys, basically, and there will be at least 6 that carry your casket? What do you want your legacy to be? On your tombstone, what do you want them to write? Not to say that it's going to happen anytime soon, but
I'm going to be cremated, buddy. They're just going to throw the ashes out here on the lawn and
out in the Puget Sound.
Probably, loved family, loved the Lord, love my profession, love my boys. I mean, just pretty simple.
Left it better than it.
I hope so. And I like I said, we shouldn't have to ask ourselves if our life mattered. I mean, as coaches, you get the paychecks for coaching come years and years after you're done coaching. I mean, you get a paycheck when you're doing it, but the real paychecks come in friendships and relationships, and watching boys succeed, and watching them become great men, and watching them become people of influence. You're a classic example of that, Jeff. I mean, nobody's made me prouder than you.
I really appreciate that. I always thought about that. I went to college. I wanted to make a lot of money, and I was on the other half of that equation. I wanted to make money, but over the years, I've come to the conclusion that I was put on this earth for a reason, and I think I found it. And the more I enjoy what I'm doing, and I have an impact on the lives of so many kids, that I'll be like you. I'm just gonna ride it out till somebody comes.
I was gonna be like you.
And I'm just gonna ride it out, and just see what happens. Right? Kids still still call me coach, still call me Kev, and as long as that's the case, I'm gonna stick with it. So having said that, I think we're gonna end this podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to actually talk, and it's the first time we've actually caught up in, like, it's almost I mean, I talked to you other than seeing you on Facebook and you commenting on, my my exploits. This has been the first time we've actually like talked in earnest for years.
Since you came up and we went to lunch with Joe and Robert and the sumo wrestler.
I almost pulled up that picture. I figured that might be a little bit too much overkill. I started to pull that picture up and actually get your comments on that. But I pretty much know how you feel about those guys. So I'm actually gonna make a trip up that way. I've been telling Rob Nellens that I need to make a trip up there because I have so many good friends up there. See you, see Coach Woods, people that have been really instrumental in my life, and keeping me on the straight and narrow and actually helping me point that arrow, which could have gone in like any different direction, at least get it straight. So
Bernie and Diane came up here a year or so. You just showed up. They're out driving around, I think just having a Sunday drive. Just pulled in. It was great to see them. So that was fun. That was really fun. No, the invitation is always open, Kev, and I love to see you. You know how much I treasure you and how much I love you. So
I love you too. So, and having said that, I think we're going to end this podcast and really appreciate you coming in and talking to me, Coach. So I just